welcome in. Another Carpooling with Ben here, and we're going to be talking about something that has really exploded over the past number of years, food trucks. And who better than the king of food trucks, Mr. Eric Weiner, sir?
How are you?
Good to have you in the car.
Great to be in the car.
So how do you describe what you do again?
Yeah, so I started with foodtrucksin.com, and we are now locally doing PVD Food Truck Events. So when people ask me, I happily tell them that we're a technology company with an event planning problem.
Okay, all right, good. Well, we plenty of events you got going on there. I mean,
Yeah.
geez, there's stuff happening all the time. And one of the things I didn't realize is you have the national registry. Essentially, you are the go-to guy for food trucks all over the country.
Yeah, so foodtrucksin.com, started about 4 years ago after I sold my last business, which was a limousine company. So
Okay.
It's nice to be getting driven around today.
That's what I'm here for it. The chauffeur hat. Okay. I'll put Nick, Ron, and Pete on chauffeur hats.
Excellent, that'd be great. Yeah, as long as they have cold water, we'll be in good
Absolutely.
shape. So foodtrucksin.com, I started after I sold the limousine company. We currently list over 7,000 food trucks in 1,600 cities across the country. And our goal, has been to make it easier for people that are looking to find food trucks to find them either on street corners or to hire them for events or for corporate occasions. So starting that company, I traveled around the country. I was visiting food trucks, visiting events, telling people about, foodtrucksin.com and what we were doing. And what came out of it was coming back to Providence being like, man, we've got this great food truck scene, but there isn't anyone really producing these kinds of events that I've seen in other places. So PVD Food Truck Events, is now in its third season of producing local food truck events where we are able to get the community to come out to large groups of food trucks, in a great, fun atmosphere.
One of the things I love about this whole concept, especially when you guys put the events together and you have, however many trucks it is, it could be, anything more than, 3 or 4 trucks, is you can go out with your friends and experience great food. I mean, it's delicious. And you don't have a problem with splitting up the bill afterwards because everybody does their own thing. You don't have to worry about anybody not liking a style of food because you have all these different options. What is it that you look for when you're putting these events together? Do you say, okay, we need this style, we need a Mediterranean, we need a French, we need this, or is it more of, hey, as many of these groups as we can fit, let's get them together and just go with it?
Yeah. So, I think about our flagship event. Our flagship event is Food Truck Friday, which is every Friday night from May through the end of September at Carousel Village at Roger Williams Park.
Okay, great.
And we started that event. This is our third season of it, but we started that event with 6 food trucks on a Friday night. And I think the components of these events is partly what you said is absolutely a cornerstone is the food. To have at least, 5 or 6 varieties of food, if not more. There are certain things like barbecue that people just love barbecue. So
sure.
You can have, maybe 2 or 3 different styles of barbecue at the same event. But we do try to have at least a variety of each truck having a different type of food. But it's really the components of not just the food, but also having, a place where, people can be outdoors, where there's parking. We love to have, entertainment and beer and wine at our events. So we're looking for the right combination of the different assets that bring all of those things together to one place.
You have all these different food trucks. Is there any sort of requirements in order to be included either in the events you produce or overall?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's a growing marketplace, so there are more and more trucks. Clearly there's enough of a demand for it because the trucks are able to open up and do well. First of all, from a global, answer, food trucks don't have any requirements that are different than a restaurant.
Okay.
So in terms of health and safety, I've talked to some people that still like to refer to them as the old yuck trucks or the roach coaches. And those days are long gone.
Sure.
If you haven't been to a food truck in the last 5 years, what you're really missing out on is mobile restaurants.
Okay.
And they have the exact same requirements as restaurants in terms of health and fire, and so those inspections are all required for any truck to do any of our events.
Okay.
And then obviously, they have to have a permit in whatever city we're doing the event, where the city licenses them. And then in terms of what we do is, we obviously, are building relationships with trucks. So trucks that have done our events from the beginning always have, the right to continue on, and then new trucks get added to the list. And, if it's a big enough event, we try to, rotate new trucks in immediately. Otherwise, sometimes there's a short wait list. But over the course of this season and the events that we're going to do in different cities and towns, from Woonsocket to Cranston and Providence and Pawtucket, and expanding further across the state, we have a regular group of 55 food trucks locally that work at our events.
Wow. And of course, the people that are preparing these meals, I mean, some of these people have amazing backgrounds, whether it be they've gone to through education, through culinary classes, or they've cooked in some really world-class restaurants, and now they don't have to always go to the same kitchen. The kitchen's on wheels, so it's really attracted some top chefs.
Yeah, I think that there are lots of great stories about how people get into this business and what's motivated them. Everything from someone that's been a lifelong chef that's worked in a restaurant that wants to eventually open their own restaurant, and a food truck is a good stepping stone to try out their menu and to build some brand recognition. To people who have said, people have always loved my meatballs in the kitchen and they thought I should sell them to more people, so I'm going to start a truck. I think the commonality that you see is that when you're a chef in a restaurant or when you're a chef at home, you only have so much interaction with the public, right? You're buried in a kitchen, or you have small groups of people. The minute you get on a food truck, the only thing separating you from your customers is an open window. So you've got all different types of people.
That thick as sheet metal.
Yeah, that's right. So there's this direct interaction with people while you're cooking and while you're at your window. And I think especially for that group that you're talking about of trained chefs that have worked in restaurants, this is a real appealing industry for them, because they can actually now connect to people that are eating their food instantly and in real time.
Wow. What's some of your favorite elements and components of these events that you're putting together? Yeah,
so I mean, I think about this Friday night series that we have, where every Friday night we're at Roger Williams Park. Once a month on Friday nights we're at Market Square in Woonsocket. Okay. When you go to those events on a Friday night, you see a cross section of society that doesn't come out anymore. I think the thing that's been most interesting to me is that we've built our brand and we've built our business through technology. We're a website, we're a social media company. We're not quite as fine-tuned as your operation, but we do Facebook Live videos from all of our events. And that helps.
I'm trying. I mean, I don't have, how many 7,100 trucks registered or episodes yet, but, we're getting there. So
what's great for us when we go out to these events is it's the cross section. You see millennials on a first date. You see single parents with their kids. You see families of multi-generational people coming out together. You see different socioeconomic backgrounds. And to me, going to a place like Roger Williams Park or Market Square in Woonsocket and being told, the world is different and people don't come out and engage the way they used to, or this area will never be what it once was. To be able to take assets like food trucks that can come and go and add a beer and wine garden, add some live music and build a vibrancy, it really is. We've had some events where people come every single week for 20 weeks in a row, and they're like, this is now what we do on Friday nights. And to be able to take that model and know what works and bring it to places like Warwick, where we're doing it twice a month on Thursdays now, and doing a couple full moon nights at Mulligan's Island this season. It's really it's great to be able to reproduce that kind of community, sense of community that we see coming from the events.
We've always been known in not only this area, but, around the country, that we've got some amazing restaurants here. I mean, and we're really, really fortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, Federal Hill, you've got restaurants in South County, on the beaches, everywhere, and spread far and wide.
And what's happened in East Bay in the last few years, the amount of food in East Bay now, too, it's really amazing.
So you've got all these different areas, and as if we couldn't, as if we didn't have enough room to expand, so we said, okay, let's throw in the food trucks. How many food trucks are there in Rhode Island on approximately?
Yeah, so there are probably 40 or so that operate year-round, that go out there on those February and January days and grind it out and try to make a living, maybe even a little fewer than that.
Okay.
But when you get into this, peak season of the spring and summer and fall, you probably have 100 food trucks on the road, depending on what you define as a food truck. Is a hot dog cart a food truck or not? But you've got about 100 people that are supporting themselves from mobile food operations. And I totally agree with you. Like, when I started this, I actually felt like, some of these events at work in Houston or in other cities where they do them every week, I said, well, they don't have the food culture we have. They don't have the great restaurants. Of course, if you've got these great food trucks, people are going to come out and support them every week. When we started our events, I really thought it would be, a once a month event at one location because we have so much food. But I think that people really are looking for the alternative to getting takeout and taking it home, or making 4 meals at home for 4 different people's taste buds.
Sure.
And that even with the incredible restaurant scene, the food truck scene here has really exploded and has allowed us on some weeks to have 4 events in different nights in a row in different cities and towns.
That's excellent. That's excellent. What's the, you mentioned the family atmosphere, and that's the coolest thing is you don't have to worry about, some of these food trucks represent a really high-end restaurant, maybe not with the same name, but
Sure.
they've got that same backing.
Absolutely.
Well, if you didn't want to take your kids to that high-end restaurant because you're nervous they're going to be a little too loud and maybe a little too rambunctious, Friday night at the Carousel.
That's right.
You can yell and scream and do whatever you want. It's a playground. It is a playground.
Yeah, and not only that, part of that too that to me is amazing about these events is that, you take that same dynamic that if you're in a restaurant and you've got a couple at the bar having a first date,
yeah,
and you got a family at a table, with 6 or 7 people, and then you have a business meeting, like there's some interactions there that like, oh gosh, is this the right atmosphere? Is this the right scene? But when you're outside at a food truck event, it all just meshes together so beautifully. Like, it's always fun for me to go around and count, how many people are at the event on a certain week that have brought their dogs, or how many people have kids with them, or, how many people have visible tattoos, or like every week you get, like, you're like, wow, there's just such a great cross section of people that are here that maybe wouldn't find themselves at the same restaurant at the same time or the same other kind of hobbies or interests, and these food truck events really bring everyone out to this commonality that's really been a blast.
You're uniting people.
We're trying.
You're like you're like the Peace Corps. You're like, the United Nations.
Yeah, it's funny.
Literally, because there's different nationalities of food.
Yeah, it really, it's a blast. I can think of a couple of events that we had at, Warwick City Hall last summer, or, at Carousel Village, or even the event that we do monthly at City Hall in Providence, where last year, we'd be setting up and a family of 12 or 14 people would show up with lawn chairs and a table and a cake and say, we've decided to do our birthday party here. You've got the food in the venue. We're just going to bring, the chairs and the cake, and everything else is here for us.
That's awesome.
And there's no rental fee.
That's perfect. There you go. What's the oldest person you've seen? Do you have an idea of the oldest person you've ever seen at one of these events?
You know what? I can't tell you about the oldest person. We've seen, people come with grandparents,
Sure.
or older couples come, but we did a event at the Norwood Library. It was really in a neighborhood, not unlike where we're driving through now.
Mm-hmm.
And we went by the day before to tell people, hey, we're gonna have a food truck event here tomorrow. And a guy that must have been in his late 70s, early 80s opened the door and said, oh, you're having a food truck event. He goes, I guess there's no chance of me getting a lobster roll then tomorrow. And I'm like, actually, I said,
contraire.
Yeah, I said, here's the list of food that we're going to have. And when we showed up the next day, he was standing on his patio with a glass of wine, and he said, this is unbelievable. He goes, I grew up in the day of Haven Brothers, which was great. Haven Brothers is one of the oldest food trucks in the country, and it's based in Providence. But they do hot dogs and hamburgers and chicken fingers, and they do it great. But for him, that was his definition of a food truck.
Okay.
So to see lobster rolls and French fries with toppings and gourmet grilled cheeses, and it was just a blast to have that interaction with someone that wasn't in touch with what we had been doing up until we were in his neighborhood.
That's so great. Aside from starving yourself for about 10 hours prior to attending, what are some of the things people should know coming to a food truck event that you guys do? Are people, is it all cash only? Should they bring wet net? What's the survival guide?
Yeah.
Top 3 things.
Yeah, so the survival guide changes a little bit. If you're eating at a food truck on a street corner, your survival guide's a little different. But when we're talking about our events where we have 15 or 18 trucks, here's what the survival guide is. Number 1, if there's an opportunity for you to get a soft drink or a beer and wine, get that first, because then you can have a drink in your hand. You can roam around, look at all the other trucks. You look at the trucks, look at the menus, and then to me, it's about divide and conquer.
Okay.
If you go with 6 people, like you do a little pinky swear and you say, look, we're each going to go to a line and we're going to order 2 things from that truck, and then we're going to find a place to sit down or stand around, and we're going to all split everything so that, one of the things
that's cool.
Yeah, because if you go to one truck and you fill your belly, you might be really happy, but then you start looking at all the things you didn't get to eat, and if you kind of divide and conquer and everyone shares, there's some people that come to our events and try to eat at as many of the trucks as possible, and if you're eating full orders of everything
Strongly encourage that.
Strongly encourage. I mean, my record, if anyone wants to come to our events and try to beat us, is that when I was doing a road trip that started in Austin, Texas and ended in Nashville, Tennessee, one of my days in Texas, I ate at 18 trucks in one day. And I have,
Challenge accepted,
right?
sir. Challenge accepted.
So 18 is the challenge, and there are some events that we do locally that have 18 trucks at it.
Wow.
So if someone wants to come and try to do it, I'll even throw on the table, if someone can come and eat at 10 trucks at any of our event, I'll give them a coupon to use for free food at the next event they come to.
Oh, well, there you go. The challenge is on, and every food truck that just is watching this right now is like, yes, all right, come on, throw down. So, best place to find out about all this information is, obviously Facebook here, but they can also go to your website, which is...
Yep, so if they go to foodtrucksin.com /food truck events, that will take them to our local landing page.
Okay.
Obviously, if they just go to foodtrucksin.com, they can search and find food trucks anywhere in the country, but foodtrucksin.com /food-truck-events is the local landing page, and then we're on Facebook at PVD Food Truck Events. We are on Instagram and Twitter as well. And we post regularly. We try to let people know which trucks will be at which event the week of. We've got a whole schedule of events, from the weekly events at Roger Williams Park to the monthly events and the bi-monthly events that are in Warwick and Woonsocket and Providence City Hall. We're always looking to add new events too. Like some of the places, we are very much about this community, and we don't want to go into a city or a place that doesn't want us or isn't welcoming.
Sure.
But we're always looking for good locations where those assets that we talked about, where easy access to get to, parking, bathrooms, seating. If you have a place that has those assets and you think it's a great place to draw people, we're happy to reach out and get the events there. Absolutely.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to join me in the car here. And, this certainly isn't a food vehicle. I've tried to keep it nice and clean and everything, but the trucks that show up at these events are top notch, and congratulations to you and your entire staff. How many people are there of you?
So I have got a technology team that's just a couple people that run the website and do the development, and then I've got a couple part-time and interns that help me on the ground at the actual events. But it's a team of less than 5 at the end of the day.
Wow, that's very impressive. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Go out, find these events, subscribe, follow them. Go have lots of food, and remember, if you hit 18 or more, this guy's going to hook you up with a coupon.
Let's program in that address for Thursday night so that you can get to that event yourself.
Yeah, we're going to do that right now. Awesome. Okay, cool.